Thank you, REA, and uh, thank you for sharing that remarkable um, piece of wisdom. Uh, I love the turn of phrase "holy boldness" in celebrating the inherent worth of all life. What a wonderful call for us to live into that holy boldness. We will have an opportunity shortly to go around and share. Uh, Before we do, I'd love to invite us into a brief period of silence just to let the words we heard settle and to touch into what we want to share when we come out of the silence. And I would say, if there is, as we indicated in the invitation that went out, something you'd like to offer from a spiritual guide who has shown an important life in your light, welcome. If after hearing this brief message, there's something that is stirring in you, feel free to offer that either way. So let emerge what wants to be spoken. And when we come out of the silence, I'll offer a few more details about how we proceed. Given the number of people we have and the amount of time we have, I think, Arya, your wish may be fulfilled. We have probably enough time to have about 3 minutes a person. There is no great deficit if you come up short of 3 minutes. When we hit close to 3 minutes, I'll ring my bell and would invite you at that point to wrap up what you're saying as elegantly but as quickly as possible. And if in Arya's judgment we're getting to the point we're impinging on other people's time, he will simply graciously and lovingly hit mute on your microphone. So please, no one take that personally. It's our best effort to balance the sharing of the whole with as much voice as we can give each individual. And so I will go around and invite a person at a time to offer whatever reflection they would choose. And I will begin right in the middle of my screen with Diane.
I had the great zechut, the great merit to be present when Ibrahim gave that teaching several years ago at a symposium where he brought Reb Zalman, our teacher, our great Rebbe of Jewish Renewal. I wanted to just share a few things this morning. One, to begin with a quote from Alif Shafak's book, The 40 Rules of Love, which is a book recommended to me by my teacher, Miles Krasson. And then I just want to name a few of my teachers and one brief thing they each gave me. So here's the quote. If you want to strengthen your faith, and this was in honor of Ibrahim, I sent this out last week, Baba, Zichrono Livracha. If you want to strengthen your faith, you will need to soften inside. He exemplified that for me. For your faith to be rock solid, your heart needs to be as soft as a feather. Through an illness, accident, loss, or fright, one way or another, we are all faced with incidents that teach us how to become less selfish and judgmental and more compassionate and generous. Yet some of us learn the lesson and manage to become milder, while some others end up becoming even harsher than before. The only way to get closer to the truth is to expand your heart so that it will encompass all humanity and still have room for more love. So I want to honor 3 teachers of mine just by naming them and naming a thing they gave me. My teacher, Bonnie Cohen, somatic teacher, great pioneer, who loved me into presence in my body. My teacher, Shinzen Young, my first meditation teacher, who taught me how to pay deep attention while sitting still and how to fall in love with whatever is going on by coming to know it deeply, and said that subtle is significant. And finally, my teacher, Rabbi David Wolfblank, Zichrono Livracha, who demonstrated to me that I already have everything I need inside me and that I just need to get out of the way and let it surface. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. And because you did such a wonderful job of time, I'd like to just take a moment of silence to let your offering settle. Thank you. Yoav, would you grace us with your sharing, please?
In 1968, I learned transcendental meditation when I was still living in Berkeley, and my teacher told us about his learning as a meditation teacher in India. There were monkeys jumping on the roof of the huts that they were meditating in, and they complained to their guru, the man who ran the center. And the guru said to them something that stayed with me ever since, which is, if you can't meditate with monkeys jumping on the roof of your hut, you can't meditate anywhere. And for me, that's been really something that follows me right up to last Thursday, when I went to the middle of Jerusalem, where I participate in a group that meets the public and faces off with Lahava, which is the racist, anti-democratic, Palestinian hunting crowd in downtown Jerusalem, who actually go around looking for Palestinians to beat up on when they're on their way home from work, and really spread viciousness and hatred as well as they can. And for me, they're the monkeys on the roof. I appreciate their contribution because they call forth from me and my colleagues our steadfastness in refusing to go along, in being willing to put on our umbrella, as it were, when we are reaching out for the humanity inside someone who's got hateful things coming out of his mouth. And it's just driven home for me that moment in 1968, and I only meditated regularly for a few months, but that message has really remained for me. It's the understanding that the dignity that I bring to an interaction depends only on my own devotion to that dignity and has nothing to do with the provocation or the violence, verbal or physical, of the person who I'm facing. So I really appreciate that piece of learning, and it's, as you can hear, it's precious to me. It's remained with me for 40, 50 years.
Thank you, Yoav. Thank you. And you hit 3 minutes almost on the button. Good job. Libby, would you share with us now, please?
You're unmuted.
Libby, you're on mute.
You're okay. Yeah, you can speak.
I think one of the things that I really liked in the film was when he said, "Look past the opposite and peer into our deeper unity." And I feel like that's one of a struggle that we have, that somehow we talk on the surface about liking and appreciating the other, but we don't really. We have to go so much deeper in those relationships and those connections to feel that oneness and that unity. And it took me back to the 70s when Len and I and our family participated with a group called Creative Initiative Foundation. And one of the events that we had every year for a number of years was called Bless Man at the Masonic Auditorium, and we had 5 performances. And to prepare for it, we handmade a flag from every country in the world. And as we sat and made those flags, we talked about the country and the people. And then we had costumes and people represented those nations. We had all the animals represented in costume and beauty and the elements, water and sun. And all of this was enacted in pageantry at the Masonic. And we filled the house with 3,000 people over and over. And it was like, what do you call it when it's like a portraying of the possible. It's a vision of what could be. And those pageants and those coming together with all those people just stays with us. And we have pictures of those events around in our house that always are reminding us of our oneness and the beauty of the planet and all of life. And one of the couples who were very active and our mentors, Harry and Amelia Rathbun, the thing that they did that inspired us and leads us to a lot of what we do today is their door was always open to everybody. Anybody who wanted to come into their house and talk about life and meaning and religion and spirituality was totally welcome. And Amelia always had food ready, and whoever was there, she managed to feed the crowd. And so we're not nearly that great at doing it, but we do try to keep our door open to everybody and have people spend the night and have young people come and just hang out and talk about what is meaningful for them. So I would say they were 2 very important mentors for us and how to live our life as fully as possible.
Thank you, Libby. Thank you for sharing that. And again, your internal clock was right on the money. Steve, may we hear from you, please?
I'm going to unmute Steve. Steve, you're on.
I'm really inspired to hear people about their spiritual path and their understanding about the connection of the whole. A lot of us take it for granted that people experience the wholeness of life, and they want to understand more about what's going on inside themselves. And I think it's very universal that we all want to find something, and we realize that it is the connection of the inside of ourselves to what we perceive as the outside of ourselves, and that connection between humans of different thought, of different color, a different race. And like we talked about before, and when we go into the schools here, we teach a lot of kids in schools. And one thing we say to them, and really reverberated when I heard the recording of the great teacher, where he said that all life is connected. He said that we really need to understand how life is connected. And so when we do connect ourselves with the life around us, it really shows us who we are as a human being. Other than my teacher who taught me meditation, the biggest spiritual teachers in my life are the animals. When I was a young boy, 2 robins took me into their family in a tree and would feed their babies with me, being there, and would leave me to take care of their little babies as they flew around. And it showed me the trust that you can bond with these animals. A wolf that I cared for taught me how to become a human being and how to communicate, because whenever I was daydreaming and wasn't there present with that wolf 100%, that wolf would start to growl at me and remind me that it's extremely important to be connected to who you are inside. And so all these reflections that we get from nature and the world around us are very important. And the at-risk kids that we work with here on site are great teachers of mine. They come here with such pain and suffering, but they in turn go so deep and are so spiritually uplifting inside once you talk to them. And that healing process works for us, works for the animals, and works for all of humankind. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to share and also to listen to all of your wonderful words of inspiration.
Thank you, Steve. And you've finished early, so let's have another moment of silence to just let these words settle in. Thank you. And now, Donna, I wonder if you would share with us, please.
Sure, thank you. The first thing I want to say is that I met Ibrahim in 2010, also in Ashland. And when I met him, all I could see was this giant escort of love and light without reserve. And during that Shabbaton, that Sabbath celebratory weekend, we were all going from Hebrew to Sufism, Zikkering, and then all of a sudden, naturally, all of us went, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. And I thought, that's perfect. That's perfect. This is perfect. For me, religion, all religions are a pathway to the divine, you know? And that he talks about in this brief talk that we listened to, that all religions intersect, really all pathways intersect. And it's important to name what gets in the way, because it brings people's consciousness and awareness to the forefront. And that's what my teachers have taught me. I call it journey back to self. And in Judaism, that's also referred to as tshuva, returning to authentic, neutral, natural self. He talked about that a little bit by addressing the High Holy Days. And he also talked about it a little bit about spreading joy during those 3 last days of Ramadan. And I'm thinking, and right now we're in the month of Adar. So really life is a consistent cycle. And that's what I got from this just now from this teacher. Life is a consistent cycle no matter where you are in the year, no matter where you are in the planet, and it's all revolving around consistently. And I think that from what I learned, and I really have had amazing interchanges with deeply spiritual teachers, including, having lived in Boulder, Colorado for a couple of years and driving Reb Zalman around here and there, or just sitting with him, or getting Shaktipat from Guru Mai, or listening to Sylvia Borstein and renaming me. All that there is that I understand for all of us to do is accompany in love, which has many forms, right? Love is a verb. Sometimes love needs, what did you say? And sometimes it's just compassionate listening. But that's what there is to do. And this work is just so very, very, very important. And in the cultures that we are in, here in South Florida is a little different than, let's say, when I lived in Oregon. So I guess that was my thing. Was that my thing? Am I over 3 minutes?
You are.
Okay, so let me just wrap up and say I'm just really grateful to be with like-minded people on this call, and like-hearted people, and doing action people. So thank you.
Thank you, Donna. Dan.
I just want to briefly say that Deirdre just showed up in video, and Deirdre, it's nice to be able to see you.
Dan, if you would share with us now, please.
Let me unmute it. Okay, there you go.
Hi, I never had the honor to meet Ibrahim, but he's absolutely a light and very intriguing to me, and I certainly will, follow his teachings at this point on. I'm curious to see more of him, learn more about him. One of the quotes that he said that stood out for me was, "The beauty of difference becomes the doorway for us." So often in our culture, we're taught to fear the other. And it's almost an unconscious way of, unless we grow up in communities where there's people of other cultures, other races, other beliefs, we're just naturally isolated, come to fear. So that's what we get to do now as grown-ups, is to celebrate other people, getting to know them, getting to appreciate them, getting to see the unity. Another thing that stood out for me that Ibrahim said was, who can hate us half as much as we hate ourselves? Which is really interesting. And for me, my journey these days is learning that compassion to love myself, to accept myself, to forgive myself. And the understanding that how can I really be compassionate towards someone else unless I find that compassion for myself first and come from that place of love, acceptance, forgiveness. So that's my work right now. That's my inner work. And I mentioned earlier, I participated in a drum circle yesterday afternoon in Berkeley, and people there of other cultures, other religions, other faiths, other traditions, and just creating this wonderful community through rhythm, which is the whole purpose of a drum circle. It was just so exhilarating for me, so celebratory. And so how can we do that in our lives? How can we create a allegorical or a metaphorical drum circle of acceptance, of listening? And a key part of drumming is that space between the notes, that space between the beats, that pausing to listen so that we can then come in to create a whole. So anyway, if this sounds a little scattered, it's because it's early for me, and I'm so glad to be here, and that's my time. Thank you for listening.